Hi, guys, and welcome to another edition of the Weekly Bustle Stitch. Here, me and Mudassir are going to go through our walks in our respective countries and discuss and debate about the idea of success and the idea of what it means to be successful and why do we need to be successful. Mudassir points out really good questions and really good facts about we need to define success if we want to debate about something, because I'm talking about success from a very general capitalistic point of view, that success is money, success is fame. He says for him success could be anything. It could be waking up on time, it could be having enough money to just survive. So that is the most important takeaway for me from this conversation, because the biggest problem is that we run after things we don't know we even want or we need, right? So when you define your own success, when you create your own system, and you go like, okay, do I need to get up and work on 5 different projects to get to my level of success? Or am I happy with just my job so that I can focus on my family, I can focus on my health, I can focus on the people around me? So those kind of questions really can only be answered once you have defined your success. And I think Mudassir did a wonderful job of pointing that out first, even though I was still adamant in debating and discussing about success in general from a capitalist point of view and how can we improve it, why do we need to do it. But he really pointed this out to me, and this, after listening back, makes me realize that, okay, that was the golden nugget that I really needed to hear. So I hope you enjoy this as well. This is going to be fun. Onwards to the first voice note. So Mudassir, I came across this very interesting article in which the focus was on trying to improve your life by going through these 12 tools. And the tools were ranging from having an anti-vision to a vision to curiosity to limitation to capability, etc., etc. I don't want to go through every single one of them because you know how we do it here. We don't really want to go into the nitty-gritties of the article. We just want to look at what it's trying to say, and we want to challenge a little bit of that notion. We want to go a bit deeper into that notion and see what are we looking at. So the idea that Mr. Dan, the author of the article, was talking about was become successful by having these things, these toolkits and these skills, and learn how to leverage them so that you can become more successful, of course. However, it was phrased in a way that do these things and disappear, do them under the shadows, and then come back avant-garde, looking like you made it into success. I think this comes from this notion of working really hard and diligently and keeping your head down while success will just follow. So there is this element of humility involved there. And that was also one of the things, that be humble about what you have and what you know and leverage that instead of becoming overconfident. So I want to kick off this conversation and have your opinion on the matter by first discussing this idea of building this toolkit and using it to become successful. Why do we need to build a toolkit like this in your eyes? Why do you think in this article they were referring to things like anti-vision, vision, and what I'm most curious about at the end of the day in this article was the final line in which he purposefully mentioned something that was a bit, it was itching in my brain a little bit. He said that you can do everything. You do not need to compromise your family for success. You do not need to compromise your health for success. You do not need to compromise your money for success. You don't need to compromise anything. If you have a plan of action and if you have the curiosity and the drive to get there, you will be able to achieve everything. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think, and I think you agree with this as well, because you and I do have a similar mindset about this, that life is all about trade offs. Life is all about making a decision and choosing a path while forsaking the other one. And yes, you might feel like I can achieve everything. I think successful and rich people are testament to the fact that you can't have everything, or else successful people would not have divorces. They would not have problems in their relationships. They would not have issues in their minds. You see so many successful people also commit suicide. They they prefer to end their life and the struggle that they're going through while having so much money and fame and adore of the world around them. So there is something going on. I really would love to research, and this is something my team will do. I will ask them to do so. research the divorce rates amongst upper middle class or like upper echelons of society versus the average society to see what is my hypothesis true that there is more problems the more richer you get, because I do not know about this, just a hunch. But this is where I want to kick off the conversation a little bit. I want to say I want to ask you these things. I want to ask you first, what do you think about some terms Mr. Dan used in this article? What are your opinions on it? Is there something interesting that you think, this would be really nice to apply to our lives? But then I also want to go a little bit deeper, which can be in the further voice notes about why do we even need this? At Bustle, we are trying to answer the why every single time, right? It's not the how. How you can be successful. I think Mr. Dan tells us better than I could ever. But I don't see the why. I don't see why I need this. Why am I pushing myself so hard to become so successful? And I think that is a part of the conversation I do want to focus on a little bit later down the road. So I'm already mentioning it, so it's in your head. So looking forward to your reply. And yeah,
Just like most points or most thoughts, I do tend to give weightage to everyone's point of view. Obviously, there are some absurd ones as well, where like not literally everything should be taken with a lot of significance. But I do like what has been mentioned in this article, especially the points about focusing on things you're bad at. So you're not stuck in doing something that you might do again and again, and it might not lead to the results that you would want to. So I do like that part of it, and just the general theory that I have about lots of other things in life. Um, People with different opinions should be respected, especially the ones that put a lot of research into it. Doesn't mean that people who don't put research shouldn't have any weightage at all to what they're saying. But um, point is that the more opinions that you have, uh, the better you can be at something. So I do like what the article is talking about. Um, but again, something that I keep repeating, there's no one size fits all for success or whatever we're talking about for that matter. For instance, if you want to make I would quote a Pakistani dish because in your podcast I am representing that the Pakistani side of things. For like, if you want to make kadhai, like there's one typical way of making it, but then there are many different versions of it, and you could be a big fan of one of them and could absolutely hate the others, and you could make one of them really really good, but when you try to do or try to make the other versions of it, you might not succeed. Or there also could be cases when you're good at all of those. So the point is that some things works for some type of people. So I do think the arguments that are being presented in this article about success are, some of them especially, like I really like the idea that you should understand where things you'll fail at, because I think in order to become successful, you need to realize that the time when you'll be young and have enough energy to do all these things and not have responsibility, especially again coming from a Pakistani background and coming from a country which you're not economically well off, at least as a country. Like I personally am very privileged in a certain senses, but most of the people aren't. So not everyone can afford um, doing lots of different things and finding out what works. So it is very important to understand what will work. And trial and error is good. I totally agree with that, because that also helps in learning. But sometimes you need to know where you're going to do that trial and error, because not everyone has that privilege. So for the starting point, I do think there are very good arguments being presented, and I would love to know that what you think about it, or do you disagree with what I think of this article, or just having different ways of doing the same thing.
I think I want to take the conversation more towards what you're saying rather than now about the article, because what we do with these articles is we just use this as like a launching pad, right? To like just get the conversation going, have an idea in our head, and then let's just talk about our opinions on these issues, because I really already like what you're talking about. So I agree that there is some merit to what the guy is saying. I Don't know how I feel about what you said about if person researches, because the problem is it might, and this is me assuming from your voice and what you meant is you were talking about this person who wrote the article and looked very researched and everything. Research can be biased, research can be selective, and research can be done by anybody these days, right? Just because it feels like a nuanced take doesn't mean it is a nuanced take. And within nuance as well, because you and I always try to tell people to be more nuanced, we tell people to be more critical thinkers and understand a little bit more than just what's at face value. These days I'm really obsessed with over nuance and all of those things as well, that sometimes you get too complicated, sometimes you want to get zabardasti. Sorry, I'm speaking Urdu, but you're forcefully getting too complicated with everything. And that's what I feel about this thing of 12 things, 13 things could have been one thing, two things, maximum three things. It didn't need to be 12 things, right? I am not a fan of saying brevity is good, because I genuinely believe nuance is very important. But I do realize that in certain cases, especially now with generative AI helping you in creating content, nuance is being missed because now it's all about the amount of content you can create. So I would rather not focus there. I liked his ideas, but a lot of them are repetitive, and some of them I already challenged. I would like to focus on what you just said, and I really, really enjoy some elements of what you were talking about, and I completely agree. It is subjective, it is selective, and that is exactly what I have a problem with these kind of things. Because when you find these articles online or you read about this, they don't sound subjective, they don't sound selective, they don't sound like they're talking to a privileged guy in Pakistan or a privileged guy in the Netherlands. They sound like they're talking to everybody because they want to cast a wide net. So they give you information that you think applies to you, but it doesn't apply to you. And you and I both know the problem that happens when you take information that is from the mindset of one person, thinking he's talking about everyone, but he's actually talking about people like him in his socioeconomic status, in his privileged lifestyle. And then we read it, we go like, oh, this should apply to us. Same similar feeling like when you look at successful people, you're like, to be successful and to be like them. But no, that's not true. There is much more layers than that, right? So I like some elements as well, as you said. I agree with you in terms of having multiple things to do, being more curious, right? Understanding things a little bit more. I do not know if I agree with the anti-vision per se, right? I do not know if I agree with the concept of, okay, start from where what you don't like to do and see if you can fix it. Because I think a lot of these people really glorify passion. Mudassir. They really glorify that the work you need to do to get up in the morning needs to give you energy. You need to work till 12 in the night because it gives you energy, and do what you really love to do. But that's not the case. Not everyone will be loving what they do. Not everyone will be interested in loving what they do, because they rather focus on something else. Just like these people who put in so much energy into 8 to 10 hours of their day because this gives them so much energy, they're zapping energy from somewhere else, right? And this goes back to the trade-off discussion that I was having. You say, no, you don't need to trade this, or you don't need to do this. No, that doesn't feel like human to me. And that could be my, you can say, my small mind, who has not been enlightened enough to live a successful life according to these people, where you see like, no, you 8 hours, you're productive, you're great, you're having fun, you come home, then you make food, you have fun with your family, spend some time, then you take your 8 hours of sleep, and then like basically life is a constant high. Maybe that is the world that successful people live in, but I just cannot resonate with it, because I just don't think that's not human to me. Human is ups and downs. Human is sometimes getting up and doing stuff you don't like to do, right? And that's fine. You get up in the morning, you stretch because you know it's good for your body, but your mind doesn't want it. Your mind wants to sleep in, right? You get up in the morning, you see a lot of money in your bank account, you're like, I'm not going to spend it today on stupid things, because as much as my mind wants it, as much as I want it, I know it's not good for my financial future, so I'm going to keep that impulse in control. So a lot of things are impulse control. So when you take that away and you go like, no, everything needs to be hunky-dory, you need to plan your life in a way that you're only chasing happiness. I do not know if that's the right North Star, because that's literally how he begins. He's like, the first thing you need to start with is this. So that's what I want to challenge you on. You agree with this? And I understand where you're coming from, but I do feel like it's being over glorified. And I do want to hear your opinions on it.
So I think this word research, I think you're taking it the wrong way. I don't mean to say that it's a very well researched article. Like it might be, but what I meant was there are two kinds of people. One of them would like go all in with something just for the sake of it, or like something that they think would work, like without properly analyzing themselves, properly analyzing the market, and lots of other things. Because success is a very, very big term, and we can have multiple different definitions of it. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is actually analyzing yourself, analyzing everything, and like I said, the research bit of it. So the article, or there are people who would read these articles, right? So in that sense, this is the research bit, and both can fail. I don't have the numbers whether or not which pathway is successful, and then again, it's very hard to determine whether one way of doing it is the right way, like I mentioned in my previous voice note as well. So coming to your second point, that yes, I agree that we sometimes do overcomplicate things, but like I said before, the term success is such a wide term unless you're defining it in a certain specific context. Like, for instance, you're talking about being successful as a musician, then that is a very specific field. Although even in that, this is a very huge field in the sense that you could be a guitarist, a pianist, or a singer. So it is a very wide term. Very hard to make it less nuanced because there are so many factors involved. And like you said very correctly yourself, it depends on the kind of country you're coming from. It depends on the kind of financial struggles you've had, or you could have had none in that case. So in that sense, um, I do think that the nuance in this case is very important. And then coming to your second point in this, I do understand that there are things that you have to do whether or not you like it, but that is different from choosing a career, right? There are certain things that you have to do as part of your chores, as part of staying healthy, like you mentioned yourself. But then there's this other bit where you don't have a lot of chances. Like I said before, your age is the limiting factor. Your financial condition is one of the limiting factor. So you have to make your bets correctly. So just knowing that what you're good at and what you're not helps you stay get like one or two steps ahead of others, or just making sure that there is a less chance of failure. So that's one way of approaching things, right? And I tend to agree with it because I live in a country where being successful is very hard. The economy as a whole isn't, um, despite how good you're doing, despite how better off you are with as compared to other people, because the overall economy is so bad that um, it's very hard to be successful. Obviously, yeah, the success, like the example I'm giving here, is more financial related, and again, it is influenced by what people perceive success to be over here, because there are so many people who struggle financially that success is all about being financially independent, or just making a good living and having a decent life, as I would call it. So I think um, it's important that we, like, in a lot of times we don't have to overcomplicate things, but it is also important that when there's something that would determine the rest of your life, because usually success is used as a term which is for your long term, then it does require a lot of nuance. um, the way you approach it can be debatable, it can be subjective, but I do believe that there is a good amount of knowledge and research you have to get before you commit to something that could have an impact on the rest of your life, or at least a few years, if not decades.
I understand where you're coming from. I understand why you give this so much value. And I think you have said it very well. And I want this to be the last two voice notes we send each other so that we can start closing it down with some closing statements. And within the closing statements, now I'm trying to ask more why questions. to get your opinion. So let me share my opinion on the why question, and then I can ask you your opinion on the why question, and then you can start to close the conversation, right? So success is important to you, and of course, it's context dependent, depending on where the country you are from. And the country that we are from, sometimes success is even just surviving because you look at the other person on the side and you go like, at least I'm better than him. And that's one of the reasons, since I've been young and I've been hearing this for a long time, is the reason why Pakistan doesn't succeed or other countries who are in the similar feature don't succeed, because their bar is not high enough. They just look at the person around them and they go like, at least I'm better than that person, so I should be content. I should be grateful, because in our religion, in our culture, in our society, we always taught to be grateful, grateful, grateful. So you won't really be ambitious and try to go for more if you're always content and grateful, right? So people like to be ambitious. People like to be reaching for the stars. As you said, some people would try to make it or connect it to how unhappy they are, that okay, no, I'm at this position, when I get to that position, then I need to get there and then I'll be happy. So let me start with my motivation of what I don't like and try to fix it, which is fine. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it is fine. But to go into the bigger crux of the matter is to ask the why. Why do we need to do this in the first place? Why do we think success is important? Why do we think that we need to be successful? We need to grow. We need to build ourselves. Because these days, I'm fascinated by this question, Mudassir, because I'm talking to a lot of the people. Some of them are routine individuals like you, and by routine, I don't mean just routine in your lifestyle, but also routine guests on these podcasts talking to me all the time. But also, generally, any other person who comes to my podcast or I meet on the streets, I've been really fascinated by this productivity paradox and how I'm trying to make sense of why are we like this. So I think this topic is so interesting in general about success and the definition of success and why do we need to be successful, that we can also squeeze in this kind of a segue of where does it come from? Why do we need to think about productivity as the only tool to success? Why is it linked to that? Why is it that I'm delivering more, building more, creating more, earning more? The more is what success is, not less, right? I keep getting, I think I've been telling you this already, that I keep getting fascinated by the days of the past where we didn't have smartphones with the power, much more power than what landed us on the moon in terms of processing power. And these machines we use not to do amazing things like what they said, like Apollo making someone land on the moon, but also just to waste some time, or on the other side, create some really great automations and become productive hacks. The question is, do these machines need to exist in our lives? Why do we have them? What value do they drive for us in terms of whatever metric and North Star we want to build? Society tells us success more. All of this is great to have. But I want to challenge that. I want to understand why less is not more in this day and age where everything is overloaded. Your social media, your senses, information, technology around you, and even productivity and success and all the good things that we should be liking, like food. Food, if you go into the past and tell your ancestors that you will never have to worry about food, they will be ecstatic. They'll be like, wow. But now we have a situation for the first time in human history that people are dying or getting unhealthy because of too much food, right? So slowly people are dying because of too much food. That has never happened in human history, because we always died because of less food, but never died because of more food due to obesity and all the related health risks that come with obesity. So it's not just the bad things that are more that is bad, such as social media, loneliness, depression, less control, but also the good things like food, like too much exercise, like productivity, right? I want to understand those things. I want to understand why don't we scrutinize them as well as much as we scrutinize the bad parts like social media. You and I have done like multiple conversations on social media, right? And now we're talking about success. And the reason I want to bring this up is because it's quite correlated to success, even just like productivity and food. More success is always good. I've never seen someone stop. I've never seen someone go like, oh, I have $1 million. I don't want to make more. I've never seen that. Very few people, you hear stories, and also after they die or something. but you do here and there remnants of some person doing this thing, but not, it's not a societal thing. Societal thing is completely on the opposite side. It's always maximization. And I know you're going to bring capitalism into this, and I want to hear that, because I would also like to bring capitalism into this, but I want to hear your opinion on this. So tell me, what do you think about this? Why do you think we need more of everything? And do you think we're becoming too productive, even for our sake? Not every moment and time that you spend needs to be accounted for, needs to be valuable, needs to be something that brings some kind of success, right? Or money. These days I'm obsessed with this because I'm actually on the bad track of doing a lot of things. I'm working on like 4 or 5 different projects at the same time. I have a daughter at home, and that's why I'm obsessed with this, because I'll be honest with you, I am doing very well in terms of my routine and my productivity, because I have set up a system, because I know if I don't do this, then I will fall over the place. So I'm liking it. But right now, as I'm sending this voice note, I'm alone in the house. My daughter is sleeping, my wife is out with her friends, and I want to play some games, but I don't want to play games. I'm like, can I not just work on this presentation for a talk that I need to do? Can I not work on this streaming idea that I have with a friend? Can I not work on something else? And I'm like, why should I just work? Granted, I don't work exactly the 8 hours. So sometimes I do work in the evenings because I maybe squeeze in a workout or maybe squeeze in some baby time. But still, I shouldn't be needing to work right now. But I want to. And yes, because I want to, it's okay, right? That's the problem in this day and age. When you want something, you are intentional about it, then you're like, okay, go for it. Especially if these are positive things like productivity and success and working, etc., hustling. So I want to hear your opinion on this. Tell me what you feel about it. And yes, as I mentioned before, this is a closing argument, so I want to hear your last voice note.
Okay, so the first part of your why question revolved around why do we need success? And maybe it's a product of the social media and this age of communication and the era of communication thing. So, first of all, we need to understand what the word success is, which is basically the opposite of failure, to succeed at something. So, sure that there are some people who would uh, okay, so first of all, you need to understand what you're defining success as. Like, for example, um, you're talking about having a proper routine and wanting to know when to probably work or spend time with your family or play games or whatever. So, being able to do what you want to do could be your success, or waking up early, or doing your maybe your gym routine or yoga routine or whatever. That could be success for you. So it's you who defines it. um, Obviously there's always this societal element to it, but on the surface level, success is just probability, the likelihood of you achieving what you want to achieve, or just completing a task could be success. So I think it's more of an existential question, because in order to find meaning in our lives, it's either religion, and even then there's an element of success. For some people, um, they set a certain goal in their life, that this is how religious they want to be. They want to go for a pilgrimage, or they want to help certain number of people, or they want to be regular praying, whatever that could be. That could be their measurement of success. So it all boils down to an existential question of what makes you want to live your life. So I think for most people, that is what success is. Um, we can either complicate it by making goals that are probably unachievable or very hard to achieve for some people. And it could be something as easy as just being living a healthy life, which most people don't, because that is not a very hard goal to reach. And um, you kind of get into a stage where you probably get close to it, and then you have nothing to live for. So it's a very complicated thing as well, but it can also be simplified in the sense that you could, if you're able to find a very achievable way of having success, then you're fine with it. And if it makes your life better, and at least better for the longest time and for at least the better part of your life, then that's fine. And then coming to your second part, you saying that this social media age and just generally these benchmarks are raised so much that even when you have some little time left, you're thinking what you should be doing with it or whether you should be working, um, and which is a very good thing that in your case you chose to work because you wanted to work, not because you have this some arbitrary thing that you want to achieve. And if it's achievable, then that's fine. That, like I just said, but for some people they complicate it to the point where they they're ruining their mental health over it, and the likelihood of achieving it might be very very low. Like we've mentioned before in this discussion that sometimes these success goals are so unachievable or so huge that we're making lives hell for us. But then again, for some people, that gives them this satisfaction that they have to always hustle, and this makes them feel alive. It's different for different people. But yes, the benchmark have become very, very high because um, the age of social media and better technology, better medical health, better ways to understand how to be so good at something, like we've mentioned football in this example in our previous podcast, etc., as well, that the previous benchmark for football was way lower than what Messi and Ronaldo made because of how technology and like all these reasons that I've just mentioned have made it so much easier. Or I know like this is a separate debate, but like they're very talented people, but the benchmarks are so high and we're all reading up on it. We're seeing so many people who are achieving so much in life, which is sometimes very, very unrealistic. And we probably fail to see that more than 90% of the people, in fact, I'll probably say that the perfect successful model that most people say it to be are people that are like in less than the 1%, and you being in less than this 1% in this like 7 billion people earth population is very very unlikely. So yeah, I do agree. And you're right about the fact that capitalism does play a huge role, and we're not satisfied in living normal lives because we're made to idealize this hustle culture. And I'm with you on this. But like I've said before, this also makes us kind of sometimes you do wonder that and it's about the ability basically, like when you go to sleep at night, if you're able to if you're willing to take a step back and see why you want it so much and whether or not it's making your life better or is it making it worse. If you're able to do that, and I've said this like a million times, like I'm banging the drum about it, that if you're able to challenge yourself into it, and even then if you're like critically evaluating your life decision and even still you find merit to what you're doing, then that's fine. It's I have a problem when people are failing to do that, and most people do. And that's why I keep pushing people to challenge themselves and try to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. If they're able to do it, whatever measure of success they want to they want to make for themselves, I'm completely fine with it. And even in the age of social media, I think it's this social media that is making this conversation happen in the first place. um, I want to see that people eventually get to a stage where they are able to question themselves as well. And I think a lot of people are coming towards that. I know the pace is still slow, but like I'm always the optimistic guy in this podcast. I do believe that there is still hope that people will understand, even in this age, that there is a need to take a step back.